And Embiid's own teammate, Podcast P, aka Paul George, has actually spoke on this before about the conundrum with the NBA scheduling, the way it is now versus the way it was when he first came into the league, where guys sometimes would have 3 games in 5 nights, and afterwards they would have 2 to 3 days of rest. The scheduling the way it is now, there's a game, then a rest day, game, rest day. And he spoke on how players can't really build up the calluses to last in the playoffs. That's why they're getting hurt. And that's why I say right now the media landscape is very interesting, with former and current players always giving their opinions on certain situations. But first, we'll check out what Podcast P had to say, and eventually we'll get to hear from former NBA champions who have the understanding of the mental preparation as well as the physical entering into an NBA season where they're aligning themselves to go after NBA championship. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
But when I came in the league, and I went to a blue collar team that worked extremely hard. That was like the norm, like practicing hard. The 2 days on training camp, that was just that was the norm to me, and I enjoyed it and I loved it because it helped prepare me mentally. It helped prepare me physically. It prepared my body for what was to come in a long season. And I think now they're teams don't really practice. We're not getting up and down. There's just, it's a lost art when it comes to that hard practicing. And I think that's why there's so many injuries that's going on, because guys that have a high low day and then a completely off day and then a high low day. Back then it was, you practice hard, you got a game. You practice hard, you got a game.
And that's when Paul George had first came into the NBA. It was like that. Sometimes in 5 nights, they would have 3 to 4 games. And then now they switched the scheduling where it's a game, day off, game, day off. And on that day off, it's a complete rest day. And this is where a lot of teams in recent years, they really don't get a lot of practices in, as fans think that they do. A lot of it tends to be walkthroughs. But that very momentum that Paul George used to go through when he first came to the league, the 3 to 4 games in 5 nights, that helped his body build up a certain resistance that he can deal with the playoff intensity from the months of April all the way to June. And that's where we see a lot of injuries in the NBA happens, especially with the superstars today. Those same high intensity pressurized environments is what Joel Embiid is going to have to work through after not necessarily building up his body like that during the regular season due to the off days and just teams already kind of only having walkthroughs during practice, not necessarily going as hard.
You might have a day off, then you come right back to it. So I feel like your body just built the callus and that you were prepared for a long and rough season, to where injuries there wasn't that many injuries. There wasn't time to take a load off because you felt good to play. You know what I mean? And I think now it's just it's tough. It's tough because it's almost the reverse. They think by giving us time off, it's helped managing our bodies, but in honesty, I think it's just making us weaker as players without putting that load and strain to our bodies.
One other thing I want to note on that, this new schedule, and by new schedule, I mean, maybe it was 18, maybe it was 19, but somewhere around that time period, there was an emphasis with the scheduling around eliminating as many 4 and 5 nights, which I don't even know if they exist anymore, eliminating 5 and 7 nights, eliminating 3 and 4 nights. And on paper, I think it sounds great. I really do. I like that idea. The problem is, prior to them changing that, you would play 5 and 7, and maybe you finish on a Monday. You probably wouldn't play again till Friday. There was time to recover from nagging injuries. I can remember with Doc, Doc was great about giving us days off when we needed them, and we would have a Monday game in LA and not play again till Saturday, let's say, and he'd say, I'll see you guys Thursday. And we would go in knowing Thursday and Friday are going to be hard practices, but now I get a little break here to recover. And you go in the gym, maybe you do your maintenance work, maybe you do your training table work, maybe you get your shots, but there was time. And now with the current schedule, it feels like it's game, day off, game, day off. There's no long breaks during the season where you have multiple days. I can't remember if it was T. Lou, but I know it was one of the coaches over this weekend. They said to me, they're like, we haven't had a 2-day break between games in over 7 weeks. All-Star aside, it was back to like December before there was a 2-day break between games. Do you sense that sort of lack of longer time between games?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's tough on our schedules because we just recently, like last month, I think is when we first started getting 2-day breaks in between going into the All-Star break. But before then, we were every other day, if not a back-to-back. And like it's no, like I don't want to say it's Clippers' fault or like I'm not saying that T. Lou doesn't practice us, but it is hard based off of our schedule of playing every other day to get good practice days in on that note, you know what I mean?
And now you guys start to see where things are already compromised enough with just the scheduling alone. But you add on top of that, the 76ers having a new roster with Paul George and other players, with Embiid already taking extra days off just to rest that knee. This is a really difficult position to be in when going into a championship season. These guys, their goal is to get to the finals. We're not talking about a regular season team here. There's a certain preparation that it comes with, and former NBA champions, they are not fooled when they see what's going on. They're like, this team, this ain't it. This is not the way to go.
Yeah, it's just the way the scheduling is. Like they made it not so many games in a week span, but we're still every other day, which is, I almost would do more games in the front and then get a little break, because those breaks, like as much as it is physically, it's a good mental to get away from the game for like 2 days and then come back, and know, all right, now we got another stretch. And that was the way we looked at it as in Indiana. Like, all right, let's win this 5 out of 7. We got 2 days to recoup. And then let's target this next week. Let's target this, 4 out of 6 this week. You know what I mean? And it's a different game, man. We're adjusting to it and we're trying to figure it out. But I think it is a different game.
So right here, we're definitely getting great insight to the way players have to prepare themselves in order to get to that April, May, June playoff run. There's a certain buildup that has to occur during the regular season in order for guys to get their bodies to last that long. This is really great insight here, especially in correlation to the 76ers this season.